Yesterday, we were made aware of robbery homicide of missing persons case, Elisa Lam. She was last seen on the 31st at the Cecil Hotel at 640 South Main Street. So right now we're asking your help. We have a photo. Parents are here. They've flown down from Vancouver, and we're seeking to get this photo out so we can find Elisa.
Elisa Lam was a 21-year-old Canadian student that travelled to Los Angeles in 2013 alone. While that may be nothing out of the ordinary, her disappearance was, and the way that she was found, well, let's say strange doesn't quite cut it. This case has been done a lot over the years, I know, but in this video we're going straight to the one likely theory over her death. So sit back and grab a coffee. Let's investigate. Elisa Lam, also known by her Cantonese name Lam Ho Yi, was a 21-year-old Canadian student studying at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. She was a local to the area, growing up just down the road in Burnaby. Her friends and her family knew her for the gentle Canadian that she was. And she came from a humble background too. Her parents, David and Yina Lam, both immigrated from Hong Kong to Canada before she was born. They owned and operated a family restaurant called Paul's, providing home-style Canadian and Chinese food to customers in the local area. Elisa had many interests. She enjoyed reading, playing video games, she loved to travel, and she had an inherent interest in psychology. Her favourite movie was Drive, and her favourite book was The Great Gatsby. And Elisa had passed high school with flying colours in her younger years. She was a grade A student. She was a kind and nurturing young woman, often described by those around her as outgoing and talkative. But as do most of us, she also had a tender and vulnerable side. Elisa had an ongoing habit to retreat into herself when she felt anxious, or sad, or scared. And after enrolling into university, this became more of a normal thing. She started to struggle with her academic deadlines and fell behind in her courses. She often compared herself to her classmates and frequently felt behind them, like she wasn't good enough. And being in her young adulthood, she also wondered what it is that she wanted from life. She wasn't sure if the decisions she was making for her long-term career were the right ones. It was around this time that she was diagnosed with depression, and as she moved into her second and then her third year of university, that tumbled even further. She wasn't managing her full-time education alongside her mental health well, and after 3 years she'd only completed enough courses to satisfy one entire year. And it was in these years that she was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a mental health characteristic that leaves you feeling entirely elated or entirely depressed. There's a spectrum of emotions, but you're stuck between the two extremes. Being a historian in her thoughts, Elisa Lam had a blog, and in the blog she wrote the following. November 21st, 2011. Depression sucks. I have no control over my emotions. I'll be angry for 2 minutes, and then sad again. I'll be happy for half an hour, and then emotional again. So far, all I've done is lay on my bed and watch episodes of Chopped. I'm just waiting for it to pass. 27th of January 2012. I feel I'm wasting my time compared to my fellow peers. I had a relapse at the start of the term and had to drop 2 of the 3 courses I was taking. Now I am down to 1 course and I've missed 3 weeks of classes since my sleeping pattern is completely reversed. I'm very disappointed in myself for breaking down during the term, forcing me to withdraw from courses. I've been at university for 3 years and have only managed to complete 3 courses. It is a weariness that keeps me at a standstill. 22nd of April 2012. I spent about 2 days in bed, hating myself. But what can you do when depression hits you like that? Trying to find a clean break from her moods and to try and figure out what Elisa wanted from life, she decided to take a break from university and go travelling. Perhaps spending some time away would help build some perspective. So in late 2012, Elisa enrolled herself out of university. She wanted to travel around the west coast of America. So after sharing her plans with her parents and discussing it, they agreed it was okay. So Elisa packed her bags, said her goodbyes, got on a train, and left. On January the 26th, 2013, while on her adventures around the West Coast, Elisa arrived in Los Angeles. She arrived by Amtrak train from San Diego, and she planned to stay in the area for a few days before travelling on to Santa Cruz. Her family were cautious of her travelling alone, so as a compromise, Elisa promised that she would message them every day. Not that it would be hard, she loved to share her plans with her family and friends. I suppose this is why it struck her parents as odd when she didn't respond to them on January the 31st. This was the day that she was expected to check out of the Hotel Cecil. Now, have you heard of the Hotel Cecil before? Well, you should. It's in fact a very interesting place, as far as dark mysteries are concerned. Built in 1924, the Cecil is a budget hotel located at 640 Main Street in downtown Los Angeles. And since first opening its doors in 1927, the Cecil gained a reputation for violence, suicide and murder, becoming the location to 16 different non-natural deaths and unexplained paranormal events. This included the murder of actress Elizabeth Short, also known as the Black Dahlia. The hotel also accommodated the famous Night Stalker Richard Ramirez during the times of his killing spree. After a murder, Ramirez would dump his bloody clothes outside of the Cecil Hotel before going back to his apartment. But at the time, the area was in such disarray that this wasn't considered out of the ordinary. This is one of the reasons why he got away with his murders for so long. Jack Unterweger, another serial killer in the LA area, also stayed at the Cecil Hotel in 1991, where he strangled and killed 3 sex workers. There are also several suicides reported from the Cecil Hotel, most of them either through poisoning or jumping from a height. But if you think about it, other than hosting a couple serial killers, the Cecil Hotel isn't that special. One can expect in almost 100 years for multiple deaths to happen. It's human nature after all. However, the Cecil Hotel is located in a particularly shady area of Los Angeles, also known as Skid Row. In 1976, and arguably still to this date, Skid Row became an official containment zone, where shelters and services for homeless people would be tolerated. And this is one of the many factors that escalated crime rate in the area. After Elisa's disappearance, Elisa's parents eventually contacted the LA Police Department. They were so worried, in fact, that they jumped on a plane to Los Angeles that very same day. Police started to search the hotel, at least to the extent that they were legally allowed to. They interviewed staff, knocked on the doors of neighbourhood rooms, and asked local workers for any information that they may know. And a few things came to light out of this. The first was that Elisa had previously been bunking at the Hotel Cecil with 2 other people. However, both those people found her strange and asked the hotel if she could be moved. This is something the hotel complied to. The next was from an owner of a local bookstore. Her name was Katie Orphan. She recalled seeing Elisa Lam on January the 31st, and recalled in a statement that Elisa seemed outgoing, very lively and very friendly. Elisa talked to her about what book she was getting, and was trying to decide if the book she bought would be too heavy for her to carry as she continued travelling. On February the 6th, a week after Elisa Lam had disappeared, police determined that they needed more knowledge and public information on her missing persons case. Flyers of the face were posted online and in the local area. Media caught on, and then so did public attention. And the next day, LAPD held a press conference to help ramp up further public knowledge on Elisa's missing case.
She was in contact with her parents daily, her family, up until the 31st, so it's been...
But it wasn't until February the 14th, 2 weeks after Elisa had disappeared, that LAPD officially released the surveillance footage that made Elisa's case go viral. Undoubtedly, I'm sure that most of you have seen this before. Initially, Elisa enters the elevator in a red hooded sweatshirt over a grey t-shirt. She enters from the left and goes to the control panel and appears to select several floors. After a few seconds, during which the door fails to close, she steps up to it and leans forward to look out both directions. She quickly steps back in, backing up to the wall and then cornering herself near the control panel, but the door still remains open. This is where her thoughts start to become hard to follow. She suddenly steps out into the hall and shimmies in several directions. Some form of panic seems to settle in Elisa as she puts both hands on the side of the door. She then goes back to the control panel and presses many more buttons, some more than once, before walking back out of the elevator. Elisa's actions then became really erratic. She starts rubbing her forearms together and waves her hands outwards with palms flat and fingers outstretched, bowing forward slightly and rocking gently. This can all be seen through the door, which still remains open. After that, she walks away and the elevator door finally closes. The surveillance footage, which would be the last time Elisa Lam is ever seen alive again, is spooky. The internet went wild with speculation. In China alone, the video getting over 3 million views in the first 10 days. Theories around the surveillance footage included Elisa Lam running away from someone pursuing her, tripping from ecstasy, and even ghosts. And these theories grew over the following days. So many spoke of Elisa, yet no one heard from her. That was until February the 19th, the 20th day that she was missing. Reception was particularly busy in the early hours of that morning. Residents were complaining that the water pressure from their showers and baths were too low. Meanwhile, others complained that water coming out of their taps was black and tasted strange. Tests from these taps did in fact show discoloration to the water. The hotel bared 4 water tanks on its rooftop, and one of these water tanks delivered fresh water to the kitchen, the coffee shop, and local guest rooms. And following the complaints from guests, a staff member went to the rooftop of the hotel to check the tanks to see if he could find anything wrong with them. There he would find a particularly gruesome discovery. Inside the tank, they found Elisa Lam deceased, floating face up. She had been in there for quite some time. The coroner's report stated that Elisa's body was moderately decomposed and bloated. She was mostly greenish, with some marbling evidence on her abdomen, and her skin was separating. Although she was found naked, her clothes were also found with her inside the water tank. There was also no evident signs of physical assault, sexual assault, or suicide. Toxicology tests showed traces consistent with prescription medication and non-prescription drugs, such as Sinutab and ibuprofen. A very small quantity of alcohol was present, but no other recreational drugs were found. Her family and friends, along with the millions of people optimistically waiting for her to return, were shocked and saddened by the news in unison. To all of the speculation and discussion, only one thing was certain: the young Elisa Lam was dead. But what really happened to Elisa Lam? Nobody knows how her body ended up in the hotel's water tank, or if anyone was involved in her getting there. Only one person saw Elisa shortly before her death, and she was happy at the time, so it couldn't have been suicide, right? And who was Elisa speaking to in the elevator? Was she running away from someone? Or was she talking to something imaginary, or a ghost? Did the Cecil Hotel's sinister past have some sort of involvement in her death? And how did she physically get up to the rooftop? Did she get there alone? Or did someone put her in there? All these questions sparked so much more debate online. But the real answer to this is much more straightforward than some people are willing to believe. So, here it is. Elisa Lam for a while had been diagnosed with both depression and bipolar disorder. And one of bipolar disorder's psychological reigns is mania. And while many jump to think that this means being very happy, it also means hallucinations, illogical cognition, making decisions that can be seen as risky or harmful, and doing things that have disastrous consequences. And this is what happened to Elisa on her fateful day. She had a psychotic break. Toxicology reports found that although the medication needed to stabilize her depression and her bipolar disorder were found in her blood, the levels weren't high enough. She was likely skipping days on taking her antipsychotic drugs. And although the video is uncomfortable to watch, you can see Elisa get agitated several times. In fact, this is the reason the doors didn't close. You can even see the automatic attempts of the door closing get cancelled by her pressing the control panel's buttons. She runs her fingers down the middle column of buttons, pressing the door hold button multiple times. And gaining access to the rooftop wasn't difficult either. Even after Elisa's death, people attempting to gain access to the roof were successful. All they had to do was climb a flight of stairs to an unlocked door. And when on the roof, access to the walkway above the tanks were made even easier, accessed by a ladder and a hatch that could be found at the top of every tank. In an interview, the employee that found Elisa described that he found her with the hatch door open, her body floating only 12 inches from the top of the tank. It is very likely that in her manic state, Elisa Lam did climb to the rooftop and get in the tank before taking her clothes off. And while in the tank, she most likely lost her calmness, or couldn't reach the top anymore. She likely panicked and then accidentally drowned to her death. It is also noted that Elisa had an affinity for rooftops. In her most recent Instagram posts before she died, pictures of rooftops she frequented were displayed, showing the city's landscape. She may have initially got her idea to reach the rooftop for a picture. And that's all we have to the case, I'm afraid. It's very likely that it was accidental death, with her bipolar disorder being a significant factor to it. Elisa Lam was an introverted but heavily perceiving type. She was quiet, but she put a lot of thought into her feelings. She wasn't scared to show what she felt, and although she wanted to better herself, there was no inclination to suicide. It is very unlikely that she meant to die, but in all honesty, we will never know 100%. Elisa's blogs are very eye-opening, by the way. As said, she wasn't scared to show her thoughts and feelings, ones that most of us generally are too shy to talk about. I think we can all connect to some of the feelings that she shared in her blog. At least I could. So, thank you, Elisa, for sharing. I'm sure you've helped normalize a lot of people's feelings. Thank you for watching another video today, folks. I really appreciate you stopping by. I try to make at least one video a week here on Coffee House Crime, so if it is something that you enjoyed, please do subscribe and hang around for more. And that's all I have for today. Have I missed anything? Is there anything that you'd like to share on Elisa Lam's case? Please let me know in the comments below and I'll write back to you. Thank you once again, and we'll meet in the next one. Take care of each other. Goodbye.